First contact facade. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of Titan Station, watching the approaching lights of the Galactic Confederation's diplomatic fleet. Their arrival was right on schedule, exactly when Earth had predicted they would come, down to the month. The massive ships gleamed like pearls in the darkness, their organic curves and flowing lines marking them as products of a civilization far more advanced than humanity appeared to be. Or so they thought. "Status report," she commanded, her voice calm despite the historic moment unfolding before her. "Operation Masquerade is running perfectly, Admiral," Lieutenant James Rodriguez responded from his station. "Our primitive defense grid is broadcasting exactly as planned. All advanced systems remain in shadow protocol." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. For 3 centuries, humanity had prepared for this moment. They had detected the first alien transmissions 297 years ago, and instead of broadcasting their presence to the stars, they had chosen to listen, to learn, and to prepare. The massive holographic displays around her showed the true state of Sol's defenses: quantum arrays hidden in dimensional pockets, automated factory complexes buried deep within Mercury's crust, antimatter refineries disguised as research stations in Jupiter's orbit, none of which would be visible to the approaching Confederation ships. Instead, they would see exactly what humanity wanted them to see: a young spacefaring race that had just achieved faster-than-light travel, with modest colonies on Mars and Luna, and simple orbital habitats scattered through their system. The perfect image of an emerging civilization, ready to be guided by the Galactic Confederation. "Message from the Confederation flagship," Rodriguez announced. "They're requesting permission to approach Earth orbit. Standard first contact protocols." Sarah nodded to Dr. Maya Patel, Earth's chosen representative for this moment. The xenanthropologist had spent decades studying the Confederation's cultural and political structures through their intercepted transmissions. "Remember," Maya said to the bridge crew, "we're young, eager, and just a little bit afraid. We want their guidance, their wisdom, their protection." Her tone was perfect, scholarly yet tinged with appropriate reverence. The Confederation fleet drew closer, their sensors sweeping Earth's system with what they thought was undetectable precision. Sarah watched the data streams showing exactly what they were scanning, what they were finding, and more importantly, what they weren't. "Admiral," Rodriguez called out, detecting additional ships at the system's edge. "Energy signatures match Kraxan raiders." Sarah's smile widened slightly. Right on time. The Confederation always tested new civilizations, though they would never admit it. They would allow the raiders to approach, to threaten the young race, only to sweep in at the last moment with a display of superior firepower. It was how they established their dominance, their right to guide and protect. But humanity had been practicing this dance for centuries. "Begin Phase 2, Sarah ordered. "Maya, you're up." As Maya opened a channel to respond to the Confederation's hail, Sarah watched the real-time tactical display. The hidden quantum sensors tracked every ship, every energy signature, every subtle movement. Centuries of preparation were about to bear fruit. The Confederation thought they were making first contact with a naive young race. Instead, they were about to discover that humanity had rewritten the rules of the game before it even began, and they didn't even know they were playing yet. "This is Earth's Central Command." Maya's voice rang out, perfectly calibrated to convey just the right mix of excitement and nervousness. "We welcome the Galactic Confederation to Sol System. Please proceed on your current vector. We are honored by your presence." Sarah watched as the Confederation ships moved exactly as predicted, taking up positions that their tactical simulations had shown countless times. Behind them, the Kraxan raiders lurked at the system's edge, waiting for their cue in this cosmic theater. Little did any of them know that humanity's apparent vulnerability was the greatest deception in galactic history, and the curtain was about to rise on Act 1. "Let the show begin," Sarah whispered, as she gave the signal to initiate the most elaborate strategic deception humanity had ever conceived. The veil lifts. Grand Ambassador Vextal of the Galactic Confederation stood in Earth's orbital diplomatic station, his crystalline form refracting the artificial light as he studied the humans before him. Their technology was exactly what his preliminary reports had indicated, functional but primitive, barely a century into their space age. The station itself was almost childishly simple in its construction, with visible support struts and manual atmospheric controls. How perfectly predictable. "Your achievements are impressive for such a young race," he said, his universal translator converting his crystalline resonances into human speech. "The Confederation looks forward to guiding your development." Admiral Chen maintained a carefully neutral expression, though inwardly she smiled at the condescension in his tone. The primitive support struts he dismissed were actually quantum-locked metamaterials that could withstand a direct antimatter blast. "We're eager to learn," Dr. Maya Patel responded, her voice carrying just the right note of deference. "Though we do have some concerns about the cracks in vessels we detected at the system's edge." Vextal's crystalline structure flickered in what passed for surprise among his kind. "You detected them. Most impressive. But do not concern yourself. The Confederation will ensure your safety." The tactical display suddenly lit up with new contacts. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers flew across his console, though he maintained the appearance of using simplified controls. "Multiple ships dropping out of FTL," he announced, letting worry seep into his voice. "They're not Confederation signatures." Right on schedule, Sarah thought. The Crexan Raiders, operating under secret Confederation guidance, would launch their surprise attack. The Confederation fleet would then dramatically save the helpless humans, cementing their position as protectors and mentors. Except humanity had other plans. The Raiders emerged from FTL, their ships arranged in an attack formation that would have been terrifying to an actual primitive civilization. Their weapons powered up, targeting what appeared to be vulnerable Earth infrastructure. "Please," Maya pleaded to Vextal, playing her role perfectly, "you must help us." The crystalline ambassador drew himself up, preparing to make a grand gesture of protection. "The Confederation will." He never finished his sentence. The Raiders fired their first volley, and their weapons passed straight through their targets. "Holograms," Vextal whispered, his crystalline form vibrating in shock. Sarah allowed herself a small, visible smile as she pressed a button on her command console. Throughout the system, humanity's carefully crafted facade began to shift. The primitive orbital platforms shimmered and transformed, revealing their true forms. Advanced weapon systems that had been there all along, hidden behind quantum camouflage. "Interesting thing about holograms," Sarah said conversationally, dropping all pretense of deference. "They're excellent for hiding what's really there, or showing things that aren't there at all." The Raiders found themselves suddenly surrounded by ships that hadn't existed moments before. Ships that, by all rights, humanity shouldn't have been capable of building for centuries. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies, her voice now carrying the full authority of her position. "Your performance was exactly as our historical records suggested it would be. Though I must admit, the Crexan Raiders were a bit obvious. The Andromeda Consortium's tactics during the Rigel Initiative were much more subtle." Vextal's crystalline structure nearly shattered in shock. The Rigel Initiative was classified at the highest levels of the Confederation. No emerging race should even know it existed. "That's impossible," he stammered. "You couldn't possibly know about the Confederation's practice of testing new races." Maya finished for him. "About how you manipulate these encounters to establish your dominance. We've been watching you for centuries, Ambassador. Every transmission, every ship movement, every first contact scenario. We learned from all of them." Around them, Earth's orbital defense grid fully revealed itself. The simple station they stood in melted away like mist, revealing a command center that rivaled anything in the Confederation's core worlds. Holographic displays showed the true extent of human military capability, capabilities that had been carefully hidden behind a veil of apparent primitiveness. "Perhaps," Sarah suggested mildly, It's time to renegotiate the terms of Earth's relationship with the Confederation. As equals, the Kraxan raiders, realizing they were now the ones being tested, powered down their weapons. The Confederation fleet hung motionless in space, their carefully scripted first contact scenario shattered beyond repair. And in the silence that followed, humanity finally began to show its true face to the galaxy. Not as supplicants or students, but as equals who had spent centuries preparing for this precise moment. The real negotiations were about to begin. Hidden Arsenal. Deep within Ceres Station, Director Elena Santos walked through a corridor that officially didn't exist, leading Ambassador Vextal and the Confederation delegation through humanity's first revealed military installation. The crystalline ambassador's usual luminescence had dimmed considerably since the events in Earth orbit, his form casting subdued shadows on the quantum alloy walls. As you can see, Elena explained, gesturing to the massive fabrication arrays visible through the observation windows. We've been quite busy during our primitive phase. The Confederation's chief military advisor, a towering Archean named Krellifor, pressed his facial tendrils against the transparent barrier, studying the impossible technology before him. These are Mark VII quantum assemblers, he rumbled. The designs were lost in the Nexus War 3,000 years ago. Lost. Elena raised an eyebrow. Or hidden. It's amazing what you can learn from studying battlefield debris that just happens to drift into your solar system, especially when you're patient enough to spend centuries piecing it together. The delegation moved deeper into the facility, each revelation more shocking than the last. What appeared to be a simple asteroid mining operation from the outside was, in reality, one of humanity's smaller military production facilities. How many? Vextal asked, his crystalline form vibrating with suppressed emotion. Installations like this. Elena smiled. Let's just say Ceres isn't unique. Every significant body in our system has similar facilities, though each specializes in different aspects of our defense program. The next chamber caused even the stoic Krellifor to step back in surprise. Rows of sleek vessels hung in quantum cradles, their hulls seeming to shift between states of matter. Phase shift carriers, Elena identified them casually, capable of transitioning between normal space and quantum subspace at will. Excellent for hiding entire fleets in plain sight. Though I'm sure you've never seen anything like them before. Because they're impossible, Krellifor growled. The energy requirements alone would be prohibitive using conventional power sources. A new voice interrupted. Dr. Marcus Wong, Earth's lead quantum physicist, stepped from a side corridor. Which is why we don't use conventional power sources. The delegation followed Marcus into what appeared to be a standard research lab. At its center, a small sphere of utter darkness hung suspended in a containment field. 0-point energy tap, Marcus explained. Direct quantum vacuum manipulation. We cracked that particular puzzle about 50 years ago. Among other things, it's what powers our phase shift technology. Vextal's crystalline structure nearly cracked from stress. Your entire civilization. It's all been a deception. Not deception, Elena corrected. Preparation. Everything we showed the galaxy was real. It just wasn't everything we had. Think of it as a civilization-wide game of poker, Ambassador. We simply chose not to show our full hand until the right moment. The tour continued through sections that showcased increasingly advanced technology. Quantum computation arrays that could process more data than the entire Confederation network. Temporal sensors that could detect ships before they even entered FTL. Each revelation systematically dismantled the Confederation's assumptions about humanity's capabilities. But why? A younger Confederation diplomat finally asked. Why spend centuries hiding your true capabilities? Elena stopped at a final observation window. Below them stretched an enormous chamber filled with what appeared to be thousands of sleek, humanoid figures. These, she said, are our combat androids. Quantum-powered, A-driven, capable of operating in any environment from the core of a star to the space between galaxies. We have millions of them, but we've never used a single one in combat. She turned to face the delegation directly. Because humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology, our ships, or our hidden arsenals. It's our patience. We watched, we learned, we prepared, not for war, but to ensure that when we finally met the galaxy, we could do so on equal terms. You knew, Vextal whispered. Somehow, you knew about the Confederation's methods. We knew about everything, Alina confirmed. The way you guide young races, the way you control their development, the way you ensure they remain dependent on Confederation protection. We decided to try something different. A massive holographic display activated, showing the entirety of human space. Hidden installations, defense networks, and fleet positions appeared as points of light, forming a web of military power that had been invisible until now. This isn't a demonstration of force, Ambassador, Alina said softly. It's an invitation to something new. A relationship between equals, based on mutual respect rather than prescribed hierarchy. The delegation stared at the display, finally beginning to understand. Humanity hadn't just prepared for first contact, they had fundamentally changed the rules of how such contact would proceed. And they had done it all without firing a single shot. The ancient knowledge. In the depths of Europa's subsurface ocean, the Confederation delegation's transport submersible descended through crystalline waters. Through the vessel's transparent hull, bioluminescent sea life created trails of light in the darkness. But Ambassador Vextal and his companions weren't here to study alien marine biology. Dr. Amara Kauri, Earth's lead archaeologist, gestured toward a massive structure emerging from the gloom. Welcome to the Vault of Dawn, ambassadors. This is where it all began. The structure was unlike anything else they'd seen in human space. Ancient metal alloys merged with crystalline matrices in impossible geometries, all of it clearly predating human civilization by millennia. Impossible, breathed Krelvor, the Arxian military advisor. This is precursor technology. The First Empire's work. Yes, Amara confirmed. Though you know them better as the Forgotten. We found this installation 280 years ago, hidden deep beneath Europa's ice. It was our first real proof that we weren't alone in the universe. The submersible docked with an airlock that seamlessly merged ancient technology with human modifications. As the delegation entered the facility proper, Vextal's crystalline form resonated with recognition. This is a database node, he said, one of the lost archives. More than that, Amara corrected, leading them through corridors where ancient holograms danced with quantum light. This is the archive, the one your histories say was destroyed in the Sundering War. As it turns out, it wasn't destroyed. It was hidden. Here, in our own backyard. They entered a vast chamber where hundreds of human scientists worked at stations that merged precursor interfaces with Earth technology. Above them, a massive holographic display showed the known galaxy, but with information overlays that made Krelvor's facial tendrils twist in shock. These are classified military protocols, he protested. Strategic analyses that even most Confederation worlds don't have access to. They're also 10,000 years old, Amara pointed out. The First Empire knew about the patterns your civilization would follow long before you followed them. They knew that eventually, someone would find this place. They left it here as, let's call it an inheritance. The next chamber held something that made even Vextal's crystalline form pale, a perfect replica of a Confederation phase gate, the most advanced FTL technology known to the galaxy. Except this one was clearly older than the Confederation itself. We found the blueprints in the archive, explained Dr. Marcus Wong, appearing from a side chamber, along with something far more valuable, the thought processes behind its creation. The precursors didn't just leave us their technology. They left us their methodology, their way of approaching problems. Which is why we didn't immediately announce our discovery to the galaxy. Amara continued. We studied. We learned. We understood that technology without wisdom would be meaningless. The delegation moved deeper into the facility, each chamber revealing more impossible treasures. Ancient weapon designs that had been lost to time, star maps showing routes that had been forgotten for millennia. But most importantly, records of civilizations that had risen and fallen, and the patterns that had led to their fates. The First Empire didn't fall, Marcus explained, bringing up historical data streams. They chose to step back, to wait. They saw the cycles of civilization, how advanced races would guide younger ones, how power would concentrate, how innovation would stagnate. They decided to break that cycle. By giving their knowledge to humanity, Vextal asked, his tone uncertain. By giving it to someone who would use it wisely, Amara corrected. The archive tested us, Ambassador. For decades, we couldn't access its deepest secrets. It waited, watched, judged. Only when we proved we wouldn't immediately use its knowledge for conquest did it fully open to us. The final chamber they entered was smaller than the others. At its center stood a simple holographic projection of Earth, slowly rotating. This is why we hid our true capabilities, Amara said softly. Why we played the role of the primitive civilization. We learned from the archive that true advancement doesn't come from superior technology or military might. It comes from understanding when to use power, and more importantly, when not to. The First Empire didn't choose us because we were special, Marcus added. They chose us because we were patient enough to learn from history rather than repeat it. And now we're offering the same choice to the Confederation. Vextal moved closer to the hologram, his crystalline form reflecting the light of humanity's homeworld. What choice is that? To break the cycle, Amara said simply. To create something new. Not a hierarchy of advanced and primitive races, but a true community of equals. The knowledge in this archive doesn't belong to humanity alone. It belongs to all sentient life. We're simply its current custodians. The implication slowly dawned on the delegation. Humanity hadn't just discovered advanced technology. They had inherited the wisdom of a civilization that had transcended the very concepts of technological supremacy. And now they were offering to share it. New balance of power. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Confederation had never been so silent. Representatives from 1,000 worlds sat in stunned attention as Admiral Sarah Chen finished presenting humanity's proposal. The massive holographic displays surrounding them showed impossible things, lost technologies, forgotten star maps, and most importantly, the complete historical records of the First Empire. For 3 centuries, Sarah concluded, humanity prepared for this moment. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to ensure that when we finally met our galactic neighbors, we could offer something more than just another variation of the same old power struggles. High Counselor Zexra, the most senior member of the Confederation leadership, leaned forward in his gravity throne. His crystalline form, ancient even by his species' standards, rippled with complex emotions. You ask us to believe, he said slowly, that your species, upon discovering the greatest repository of knowledge in known space, chose to hide this fact for centuries. Simply to, what? Teach us a lesson. Dr. Maya Patel stepped forward, her diplomatic training evident in every measured movement. Not to teach, High Counselor. To demonstrate. The First Empire left us more than just technology. They left us a warning about the cycles that can trap even the most advanced civilizations. The pattern of discovery, expansion, domination, and eventual stagnation. Director Elena Santos activated another holographic display, this one showing the complex web of relationships and dependencies that made up the current galactic political structure. Look familiar? She asked. It should. It's the same pattern that led to the fall of the Nexus Confederation 12,000 years ago, and the Rigel Alliance before that. And yes, the pattern your own confederation was beginning to follow. You speak of patterns and cycles, rumbled Krelvor from his military observer's position. Yet you have revealed military capabilities that could have conquered half the known galaxy. Why show restraint? The human delegation shared a knowing look before Dr. Marcus Wong answered. Because conquest was never the point. Power isn't measured in ships or weapons or territory. It's measured in choices, in possibilities. At his gesture, the holographic displays shifted again, showing new trade routes, research initiatives, collaborative projects that could reshape the galaxy. We're not here to replace the Confederation's leadership, Sarah explained. We're here to help transform it into something new, something that breaks the cycle. The First Empire didn't give us their knowledge because we were special. They gave it to us because we were willing to wait, to learn, to understand before we acted. And now? Zexra asked, his tone caught between curiosity and concern. Now we offer the same choice they offered us, Maya said. The archive beneath Europa isn't just humanity's inheritance. It's a gift meant for all sentient life. But accessing it requires more than just technological capability. It requires wisdom. The wisdom to know when not to use power, even when you have it. The chamber erupted in overlapping conversations as the implications became clear. Humanity wasn't offering submission or demanding dominance. They were offering partnership in something entirely new. Admiral Chen raised her hand, and the chamber gradually fell silent again. 3 centuries ago, humanity looked to the stars and realized we weren't alone. We could have broadcast our presence, rushed to join the galactic community. Instead, we chose to wait, to learn, to prepare. Not for war, though we made sure we could defend ourselves. We prepared for this moment. The moment when we could help break a cycle that has trapped civilizations for millions of years. She gestured to the display showing Earth, now surrounded by the revealed extent of human technological achievement. Every weapon we built, every defense we created, every deception we maintained, they all served one purpose: to ensure that when this day came, we could offer real change rather than just another shift in who holds power. And if we refuse, someone called from the chamber's depths, then we remain exactly what we appear to be, Maya answered calmly. A young civilization, eager to learn from our elders. All our revealed capabilities return to their hidden state. The archive remains sealed. The cycle continues. She paused meaningfully. But consider this. How many other young races might be out there right now, following our example, watching, learning, preparing? How many more revelations like today's await in humanity's future? The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. Humanity had rewritten the rules of first contact, of technological development, of galactic politics itself. They had done it not through force or threat, but through patience, wisdom, and careful preparation. High Counselor Zexra's crystalline form shimmered as he came to a decision. 3 centuries of preparation, just to offer us a chance to change. The best changes, Sarah said with a smile, are the ones you choose to make yourself. And in that moment, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted, not through force of arms or shows of strength, but through the offering of a choice. The cycle that had governed galactic civilization for millions of years faced its first real chance to transform into something new. Humanity had achieved what the First Empire had hoped for, not the power to rule the galaxy, but the wisdom to help it evolve.